My name is Amanda Subish. I will be your facilitator today. In this session, listen to a dialogue among tribal members and deepen your understanding of traditional practices for stewarding land, sea, and shared future, gathering and harvesting cultural burning, and maritime traditions. Discuss actions to critically reclaim rights to these practices taken by colonization. You guys are joining the session to commit to lessening the distance between Native and non-Native communities, see deep cultural and spiritual transformation, and truly live into cooperation. Today, we have an amazing panel consisting of all Native Americans. We'll start with introductions. Dan?
Okay, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stan Rodriguez. I'm from the Ipai Nation of San Isabel.
Mihuano Moema Mineta Will Madrigal Jr. and Hankundagan Kumeyaay. Good morning, my name is Will Madrigal. I'm representing the Cahuilla and Luiseño people today, and I'm also representing the Climate Science Alliance nonprofit.
Miyuyam, my name is Myra Maciel. Good morning, everyone. I'm from Pechanga Indian Reservation.
Miriam. My name is Lenore D. Klein. I'm from the Palma Band of Mission Indians. My other side of the family comes from the Barona Band of Mission Indians.
I'm Natong Wendy Schlater, La Jolla, Tribal Chairwoman for La Jolla Band of Luiseño Indians. Honored to be here with you today. And so I just wanted to let everybody know this is a non-federal moment, so we can speak freely in this session. So am I going into my presentation? Okay. So I like to get, big step. Okay, so good morning again. My name is Wendy Schlater, Tribal Chairwoman for the La Jolla Band of Luiseño Indians. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. One of the things, my part in speaking and sharing with you today is, and I know this conference is based on cooperation and how to do less harm when working with Indigenous communities. And one of the things I think we need to be mindful of when we think about helping or working with our Indigenous communities is that not to mystify us, not to romanticize us. So as you see, we come in many different shapes, sizes, and colors, and but one of the things that we're doing and reconnecting back to our natural life ways of working with Kumeyaay, Mother Earth, is reconnecting back to our value systems that governed us pre-U.S. colonization. And so one of the things, one of the programs that we have in La Jolla that we work with one of our sister tribes in Palma is to be a good relative, the Garden Project. And so some of you may be familiar with Palma's Garden. They were able to acquire Tierra Farms. It used to be Tierra Farms, and then, Okay. Yeah. Tierra Miguel? Yeah. Farms. And then they brought that back underneath their jurisdiction, their Aboriginal land. And so they've opened it up to the sister tribes. And one of the things we like to do in the gardening project is not only learn how to grow pumpkins and sunflowers and gourds for our traditional arts and crafts, but we also like to teach the relationships between planting and the earth. And so for example, with the planting, we start off with a prayer, asking Kumeyaay to bless our seeds that we're going to, plant inside of her, and to have a good, successful green harvest and everything. And then we talk about the insects. So there's good insects that will eat your plants. So those are sometimes the bad influences through school or bullying or hard times in life that you want to mitigate. And how do you bring the positiveness into your garden and everything? And so we have conversations around that. So we know that ladybugs are good insects to have in your garden, right? And then we know beetles, like stink bugs and things like that, aren't necessarily nice to have in your garden. And so we have those conversations with them. And so, and then also in that, the gifts that they get from Tamayawet, they also share with the community. So on the table over here, they have gourds that they're going to give to the boys group so that they can make their rattles. They have pumpkins that they gave to, I believe, back to the Pama youth, and then the community and the elders. So they shared their harvest with everybody, and that's one of our value systems as well. And so I think they're here decorating their own pumpkins on the table. And then the sunflowers that they grew, they gave to the elders, and then to the, they made a nice little bouquet for the casino cafe in Pama. And so that was well received, and that gave them some self-esteem and everything. And so the picture with the rose hips, we also do nature walks with them and through our territories, and we teach them how to harvest the herbs and the plants and things that'll feed them, continue to feed them. So that's on the La Jolla Indian Reservation, the river with the rose hips right there. Next slide. So the impacts of historical trauma kind of sets the stage for, you know, what I shared with you in the beginning of my talk with you, is there was a disruption of lifeways with U.S. colonization. And, you know, it started in land grabbing, but it really took its course when they started to take our children. And so we just got done was it last month or the beginning of this month? I believe it was Residential Boarding School Awareness Day. And how many are you familiar with the boarding school era with Indigenous people? Okay, good. Talking to an informed group of people. So, so basically, the White House, while they get that situated for me, the White House sent a publication out recognizing Boarding School Awareness Day. But, you know, like if you get to the last, it started in the early 1800s. California became state in 1850, right? Pre-U.S. colonization, we were colonized by Spaniards and the Mexican government. But we're going to focus on this era because this is our current foreign government occupation that's currently on our lands right now. So the impact of these schools on Native communities across the United States and Canada can never be fully grasped by our cultural. But our culture survives thanks to the resiliency of tribes and perseverance of our families and the dedication to teach the truth and accurate history. And so that's part of what we do with our garden project as well. And so if you think about pre-colonization and you think about how our people were set up, you have a sacred object in the middle. It could be anything from our sage to tools and things that we work with in our ceremony. And around that, we have a circle of children. And then around that, we have a circle of elders. And then around that, we have a circle of women. And then around them, we have a circle of men. And what's beautiful about this circle is that everybody knows their line of responsibility, what they're responsible, what they're accountable for, what they're teaching, because they know whatever. So the children are learning about the sacredness of this object or this teaching from the elders, the grandparents, the aunties, the uncles, the older people. And then the women are caring for the older people, the children, the sacred objects, and then they're also caring for the men. And then the men they have their line of sight. They're also caring for the circle that is within all of them. It's their obligation, not their obligation, but it's their responsibility to protect the circle. And so, because they know whatever comes in also comes back out. And so it's a reciprocal relationship. So when we have disruption of natural lifeways, especially with the boarding school as an example, you see that our men were taken away as slaves and servitude servants, and our women. So, and then our children were taken to boarding schools where they were disconnected from their teachings, their language, their family, their support groups, right? And so when you think about how everything was together and supportive, and then all of a sudden you have all of the separation that happens, and then inside of the separation are all these laws, these violence, physical, sexual violence, violence against, Mother Earth, the way they dress, the way we wore our hair, everything. And so you see this disruption pattern. And so our communities look the way they do, our disparity health rates when it comes to diabetes, cancer, high blood pressure, our mortality rates are low, our drug and alcohol rates are high in our communities, suicide. It's because of this disruption of lifeways. And so as we are now, through our resiliency and our family teachings, we've been able to still be here. We're still here. We haven't gone anywhere. And we're starting to put this circle back together on our reservations in our communities. And so, so that's how we have that cooperation with our sister tribes. We do a lot of work with Pechanga, with Pama. We do a lot of work with Barona sometimes. And so it's a sister tribes, it's reciprocal in getting back to this way of balance for our people. And you're gonna hear that throughout the discussions from today from the other presenters. So how am I doing on time, Amanda? Good? Okay, all right. So there's a lot of information I just shared with you. Is there any questions? And this is a safe space. This is the time to ask questions that you think might be offensive or what'd you call it? Go ahead. Better not be offensive. No, go ahead.
I really appreciate seeing that position on the life ways and the ways in which the community engages, teaches, and cares for one another. So in a sense, I always wonder when there's a binary of men's responsibilities and women's responsibilities where folks who don't fall into those categories find themselves as far as having a duty to the community.
Okay, thank you. And you know what? Thank you. I identify as Two-Spirit myself. And so, yes, so in our circle, wherever your sexual orientation landed, you were welcomed to participate in those different circles. And so, if you were, so like our women who were more waipotaha, that work with, it's walking in both masculine and feminine body. And so if you're a woman and you felt you wanted to be part of the hunting party, then you're part of the hunting party, and vice versa. And so the roles were interchangeable. And so, yeah, so that's a whole other teaching. So, but I wanted to focus on the disruption and the historical trauma, but that's part of it well. So thank you for the reminder. So see, there's no offensive question here. So any more questions before, okay, in the back, go ahead.
So are you guys doing work currently to counteract what you guys experience? Can you please?
Thank you. Clearly, there was a huge disruption in the way that you were able to participate in who you were as individuals and culturally. Are you working today to really combat that as a community and with the world, and how can we show up and participate in that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So did everyone understand her question? Okay, can you guys explain it to me? No, just kidding. So basically, she asked, "Are we working to bring that circle back together, and then how are we doing that?" And so the best example I have, and I'll let Myra Maciel speak to that, is your guys' Chimtela school.
I just want to answer it briefly, but in that, we at Pechanga, we have a tribal school that is open to, Pechanga members, Mommy and Me preschool through 5th grade. And it's really speaking the language, living the culture, but including everyone. It's like, even to your question about, binaries, we need everyone to help in our community. So those divisions that are here today and really highlighted in the modern world, in pre-contact times and pre-colonial times, those divisions, they weren't thought of like they're thought of today, because you need everyone to live. You need everyone to live healthy. And the inclusion has always been there. So, having those programs and continuing to have those programs, they need to include everyone in the community.
Thank you, Myra. So Myra's been really modest here, but that Chimtela school that they have on their reservation is really cutting-edge immersion language program. And in our language, our Chimtela is our value and value systems that governed us pre-U.S. Constitution. So every federally recognized tribe had to qualify for their federally recognized status. And so one of those things is you had to have a language, you had to have a demonstration of how you governed yourself pre-U.S. Constitution. You had to have a land base, and you had to have a people. So those are 4 things that that you need. And so one of the strengths in the Payómkawichum Luiseño villages is the revitalization of language. And I'm sure you're going to hear that from Dr. Rodriguez. And are you doctor yet, or almost? Okay. Yeah, Dr. Will, eh? I'm going to go ahead and claim it for you, brother, eh? And Will from Cahuilla. And so Pechanga excels in that, and like Myra was sharing, is they do share that with the surrounding villages there as well. So I hope I answered your question. Like, we like to talk in circles, so it's not like linear, direct, and so you have to put the pieces together. Yeah.
Do you need help up? Next, we want to discuss gathering and gathering rights. My mom, Lenora, and Myra will elaborate on this.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, for all that. Wendy's my cousin, so if you need to ask her some, tell me. No, I'm just kidding. We'd like to, when I was approached to do this panel, it was an opportunity to bring out what, as an Indigenous woman, practicing our traditional gathering of our acorn, what pitfalls or what have I encountered. So when we got together in discussing what we want to bring to the audience is our access to our traditional gathering. I don't know how many times I've been fined. I've been, ticketed for not having a proper permit to gather my ancestral foods, that have been here. That sustained our people, and that's why we are still here, part of it. And so that frustration, we need to do some to where it's a little bit more accessible. Also providing planning for preservation of our acorn trees. What's going to happen? Because there's so many hands in the pot with regards that we can't sit at the table and have a voice in there. And I'm talking with the federal government, I'm talking with the state, I'm talking to the county. These are some of those bigger entities that, as natives, we don't have a voice to collect our traditional food, such as acorn. There's a whole lot of other things, native plants that Myra can talk about a little bit more, but I would like to bring or raise that awareness that as a Native woman, Payómkawichum woman, that I am denied certain access rights to our traditional foods. These are some of the pictures I have shared with the group because I'm trying to pass on this tradition. It's making its way back, but we need to start teaching our kids young, you know, and so these are the things that I'm passing on to my my family, and as well as any of our Native community members that would like to learn our traditions.
Thank you, Dee. So, you know, like Dee was explaining, some of our challenges that we've had over the years is access to land, access to private property, state land, federal lands that aren't on our reservations, and how do we get into those lands? Because the reality is, and I think everyone needs to just acknowledge it and embrace it, that all of California was Indian land, and all of Southern California was our home not long ago. And that not long ago is really important to remember, because we have had these traditions, long running generations, that are still in our very recent memory. You know, I was very fortunate to grow up with my grandmother, who lived to be almost 100, who did she spent a tremendous amount of time with me, explained a lot of things that Dee was talking about as well, about land access and being permitted, having your foods taken away as you drive down the hill. And as I was a young person going to college, my elders would constantly say, how do we stop that? What can we do so that doesn't continue to happen? So once I graduated from college and was working for my tribe, I've been working for Pechanga for almost 20 years now. The work that I've primarily been also focusing on is access. How do we create permits with the state parks? How do we, and in a lot of those, the tribe has had to create those permits for the state parks. So the agreements of getting onto private property that is a land preserve or a nature conservancy, going in front of boards to express how you want to gather, what it actually means, because a lot of that is in what we mean to go harvest, what are we actually going to do. And because of our farming industry and how we've treated the land the last 200 years in this country, a lot of people still ingest that as tearing up the land so it never returns. And our worldview is so different from that. So, I just really want to express, we are constantly defending and explaining our life ways all the time. And with this theme of the conference of cooperation and working together, we need all of you to also help us in that land access, in that cooperation, in that understanding, so that our future generations don't have those same struggles that we've dealt with. So our grandchildren are not constantly also explaining why they need access to that plant, what's going to happen to that plant. Some of these slides are our community. I'm actively always out gathering something in our community, eating, whether it's for eating or traditional clothing. I've worked really hard the last 20 years to bring back our traditional clothing, but in that, it's land access. It's when there's a natural fire and getting into that fire, working with CAL FIRE, working with the federal, working with all these different agencies for that cooperation. And in that cooperation, really is birthed a beautiful partnership within that. Just as of yesterday, and we partner with our city of Temecula all the time to not cut the willows down until we've exhausted the harvest for that year. But even in that, explaining to them please wait until the colder months to cut those down, because they are at the other mindset of we need to prevent fire, we need to do the precautions to keep everybody safe. But in those partnerships, really working together is key, but also sharing. I have found within my work and in my life that we do have to share and we have to explain so that the public and all of the ones that we work with also know what's going on and have that understanding, and you don't walk away with questions. I really hope that you, as we're going down the line of this panel, you do ask more questions at the end, because this is a lot to ingest. And the repair that we are constantly all a part of on this stage, and the cycle of renewal and bringing back things that were lost very recently and bringing them back so strong is really very exciting for me to be a part of.
Can you highlight a little on the depletion of some of the resources, one in particular being our white sage?
Yeah, so white sage has been really discussed kind of in the media, most recently because of not just the selling of white sage, and it's really hard for myself and for many Native people to see things that are sold. Like you go into a store and you go buy a bundle of sage, and that relationship that is made when you go gather and the relationship of trade is completely lost within our new economic system when you see that. But then the other side of that is the illegal, gathering and access and over-gathering, and not cycling back, not allowing that plant. I was taught to only gather sage at certain times of the year when the plant has already cycled itself out, when the seeds are already dropped. So that plant has cycled itself to renew itself for the coming years, and now the leaves are okay to take. But when you don't understand the cycles of the plants that you're gathering from, that's where the confusion is and the destruction happens.
Okay. Next, we're gonna have Will. Thank you, Myra, Mom. Next, oh, just kidding.
Okay. When Myra had spoke about having that relationship, and that is, we're grown with that everything has a spirit. Everything, our creation story tells us. And so, there's things that when we gather, there's prayers that are being lifted. There's offerings that are being presented. So our ways of just that respect and knowing that these are living things. It doesn't matter whether it's a rock or whether it's, it's still a living thing. That's our belief. And you have to have that respect. And knowing those, I don't want to say, just like Myra saying, those cycles of how that balance is and understanding that.
Pengamuchinga I nekat, moko pishwashkatim. Pe iwaiki wenet ikut, ichim hawewa, ichim tachmoy. Those are the words of our elders in the Cahuilla language that I speak and I teach. And it just, for us as California Native people, it sets our path in life. And what it's saying there is that our Creator put all these things on this earth in abundance to sustain us, to show us, how much He loves us, and it's our responsibility to honor that by not only utilizing the land, but taking care of it, protecting and preserving it. And so, since the colonizer came over to our continent, we've been actively doing that. And like Dr. Sands said earlier this morning, that we continue to utilize our medicines and our foods, and we continue to pass that knowledge on to the next generation. And so I was lucky enough to grow up on the reservation, on the Cahuilla reservation in Riverside County, and we grew up going out and gathering every season to get acorns. We got yucca, we got pine nuts, we got elderberry, and many other things. And we were always reflecting on that creation story that was taught to us, and every tribe has one, but it's the blueprint for life. It's very simple stories with animal characters in it, and our creator, and how the people were created, and then how the world was created, and then how the medicines, the plants, everything, the ocean, the animals. And our role as human beings is not above that. Our role as human beings is to nurture and protect those things and the land, Mother Earth. So that's our mandate, that's our philosophy, whatever you want to call it. That's our belief system, like Auntie Dee was saying. And so these are the things that are driving and motivating the Native communities here in Southern California. And you're surrounded by Native communities if you don't know that already. And I'm not just talking about reservations, because San Diego has the most reservations of any county in the United States, but I'm talking about vibrant communities that are going to the beaches, that are going to the forest and to the mountains, and even sometimes within the city limits to get native medicinal plants and food. And, like Myra was saying, it's difficult now to do that, because so many people don't understand who we are and where we come from, why we're doing what we do when we gather the plants. And we get ridiculed not only by agencies, but the public. So I like to see, a day where we can go out and, convey that to the hikers and the picnickers and, the day campers and, folks that we come across and have that mutual understanding, right? Next slide. So what we like to do as Native people is work on the land and communicate with the land, pray to our ancestors. And this is one instance where I was invited to around Yosemite area to the Norfolk Mono tribe that was up north. And they were having a teaching that day. It's a 3-day teaching, actually the whole weekend, where we were putting good fire on the ground and replenishing acres and acres of land that has sustained our people for thousands of years. And the way we did that was through ceremony, through prayer. So we're starting the ceremony here, a big group of about 200 people, natives, non-natives, people who were invited by Chairman Ron Good, who is our fire elder and firekeeper there and a landowner. And so this was done on private land, family land, because it's almost impossible for us to do this on the federal land that we call reservations because of the laws and restrictions. So this is my cousin Marlena with the basket hat on. She's from Rincon. And we both went up there together as part of our job and responsibility for the Climate Science Alliance, which is a nonprofit out of San Diego County that serves tribes in other communities as well, in strategizing and protecting the earth and the effects of climate change. So this is exactly why we have to do what we're doing. This is exactly why we have to put fire on the ground to the various plant stands that we utilize, the medicine, the food. Up here in this instance, we're actually burning acres of lemonberry, and so that it can be replenished and can be used for basketry. So they use it for, and again for food as well. So we have dozens and dozens of plants that need fire, that need, especially the trees, they need the smoke from these low intensity, manageable burns. And so the smoke coats our black oak and our live oak trees from pests and disease. It's the best way, even today, to protect, aside from pesticide spraying, it's the best way to protect the entire tree, the leaves, the branches, the trunk, from invasive species like gold-spotted oak borer, which is devastating California right now. I don't know if you know. So all our trees are in danger, especially the ones we use for food for year-round. And so fire is put on the land to accomplish so many things. But because of Smokey the Bear and the the fire agencies, we weren't allowed to do that because they wouldn't let us. They don't want us to burn. They said, you guys have no business burning. Leave that to us. And again, they only know how to put stuff out, right? And so what do you get? You get a fire regime in the state of California that every year is getting worse. The wildfire rate, the spread, the cost of life, damage. If you look it up, Google it, it's getting worse every year. The fires are getting more and more intense. They're getting more and more out of control, and we're just asking them to let us put fire on the ground with them. We want to do a cooperative trust relationship and reciprocity with them. And so what we've been able to do, the Climate Science Alliance has been able to foster these new type of relationships with state parks, California state parks, with the Forest Service, with the county, and with other landowners, even private landowners, to cooperate and learn about putting, traditional, we call it traditional good fire, we call it prescribed fire, we call it cultural burning. It has so many names now, and it's starting to become a fast-growing movement in and of itself, which is great because that's the only way that these out-of-control California wildfires are going to be quelled is because they're natural burns that are going into the forests and going into the parks that act as natural fire breaks and natural fire buffers from people, from animals, from property that's being lost. And the benefit will only be exponential, tenfold, as we continue to do this. So why do we do that? Why cultural burning? Why do we do that as Native people? We've always done it. We've done it for thousands of years. Again, because our creation story, our teachers, which was our creators, they taught us to do this. And so even when the first conquistadors landed on our shores, they observed, and this is in their recording of the first peoples that they encountered. They observed a mosaic of burning patterns that are happening throughout the coast of California, especially here in San Diego County. They saw white smoke all up and down the coast because the people were burning in a efficient pattern to preserve and create a Garden of Eden, and that's what they said it was. That the coast of California was, they thought, an unnurtured Garden of Eden because they didn't acknowledge that we were capable of understanding the science well enough to do this type of these type of projects. And so when we were sequestered on reservations 150 years ago, that's when they stopped us from burning. And ever since then, we've been trying to get back to it. And everybody's been against us, though, for the last 150 years, including the BIA. They told us straight out, you can't do that. So we told them we're going to do it anyway. And now here they are on board. Now they have hired burn bosses they're sending to the reservations to burn. That's progress. That's a change. It's a lot of hard work, had got into that. And to see these pictures here, it's beautiful that we're doing it down here, not just up north now. We're doing it down here on our reservations. My reservation in Cahuilla in Riverside County, we have a burn plan to burn about 2 acres of junkus, which is what we use for our coiled baskets. And Mara, you had a basket somewhere. Do you still have it? I just wanted to, yeah, she has her, she has a really nice coiled basket type that she could show you, but those baskets are our livelihood. We carried everything from food to water to medicine in those, and we continue to pass that knowledge on to the next generation. And we utilize those baskets every day. They're not just in museums, which people don't know because you usually see baskets in museums. But we utilize them every day, and we cook in them and everything. And so I think, lastly, I'll just end with that cultural burning on the land is a manageable way for Native people to replenish, revitalize, and protect our forests and our natural landscapes. Omoachima. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Next, we're going to have Stan discussing maritime traditions and access to coastline.
Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge Chairwoman Slater for, bringing up about how our people, our family, our communities are put together, and that we all have a responsibility, and the impact of suppression of our native knowledge, our culture, our history, the impact that has had, and what can be done to change that. We have puberty ceremonies that teach how to be an adult, what are one's roles and responsibilities. All that was suppressed, and now they're being revived. And this is so important for our people. And we're talking about, acorns and gathering our food sources. How many of you ever gone into the wilderness out here? It's not a wilderness. It's our home. If you know what you're looking at, you're going to see a grocery store, a pharmacy, a hardware store, everything that we need in order to thrive. And it's become more and more difficult. And, it's really, I'm nice. But sometimes I have to fly in there loaded with F-bombs. So when I'm pulled over by the Forest Service, I need to explain to them the relationship that he has with me, I have with the land has with me. Go. Leave me alone. Leave us alone. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. Language and culture, and what can be done? What can be done to preserve our culture? Our culture was outlawed until the Freedom of American Indian Religion Act was passed August 11th, 1978, and it still did not completely pass until 1993, 31 years ago. That's when we truly had freedom of religion to practice our own beliefs, our language, our culture. And then talking about prescribed burns. The great Laura Gonzalez said it is not our creation story, it's our creation history. And this tells us why we do what we do, and the land, and the fire, the importance of fire. How many of you are scared of fire? And you should be at times if you don't clean your house. How many of you live in a bedroom? Do you clean it every day? No, sometimes you leave your clothes on the floor and stuff. But if you let it pile up, there's a danger there. So what William or Dr. Madrigal was talking about was our responsibility to the universe, to the land, to our mother. Now we're going to talk about the ocean. In our creation stories, it talks about the creators coming from a place like the ocean. And the metaphors. Knowledge comes from the ocean. Our people are a people of the islands, the ocean, the valleys, the mountains, the desert, parts of the Colorado River, parts of the Sea of Cortez, all over, all these different ecosystems. that we learn about. Over 250 different foods on the ocean that our people used to eat. How many of you eat that many foods? 250. Okay. You guys need to hang out with us more. So, and it tells the story of the ocean. How many of you take salt? How many of you use salt? How many of you are using salt from the ocean? How many of you are aware of the microplastics that are in it? And the damage that is being done to the ecosystem. How many of you like seaweed? You know, we're reviving our gathering practices on the coast. Tule boats. How many of you like going on the ocean? Go for a ride. Go on a boat. We make these boats we call hakuayo. Your people do the same thing. All of our people did these. When the Spaniards first came around, I'm not going to call them colonizers. I'm not going to call them conquistadors. They never conquered me. They never did. If we speak our language, we know our culture, we have not been conquered. So the Spaniards would say that they seen all these crazy Indians out by the Coronado Islands hunting for whales in grass boats. We're not crazy. We know what we're doing. Just like fire signs, just like gathering techniques, we know what we're doing. This knowledge, or native epistemology, has been passed over for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. And what is the benefit of making a tule boat? Aside from it being primitive. How many of you ever gone on an aluminum boat? What is the impact on the environment? With this gathering, we have times that we gather. We call asuk, tule. Gather at certain times. We use it. We create boats. We create mats. We can use it for many things. We can use it to make thatching for our houses. How many of you like, what's that word? Thank you, cucumbers. The root tastes just like cucumber. So you can eat that. You can get so much from that. So we gather. We put these boats together. How long do you think it takes to make a boat? What do you think? You say 7 hours a week? Huh? 2 hours? We have 2, huh? 2 days, 1 week. All right, go ahead. I know you know, even though you don't know it yet. 3 days. Are you comfortable with 3 days? My sons and I would put a boat together in 15 minutes. I know, don't try this at home though. They know what they're doing. But the thing is, if you know what you're doing, you can create so much that is environmentally friendly. You protect the environment. And by cutting, you give the water time to heal too. Because if you don't harvest, if you don't collect, it starts to clutter. Then the water loses oxygen. The fish will die. So by doing this, we are creating a balance. How many of you ever gone fishing? How many of you ever gone for hashupil, grunion? Grunion. You know, grunion, the ones that go on the, they have a good time on the beach and then they take off. All right. So, taking our people out, and this is something, you know, inviting, you know, come on out there with us when we go and harvest grunion. There's a certain way of doing that. You know, and it goes back to our creation history. In our creation history, when everybody became mortal, all the animals, the trees, everything. Some animals said, I want to eat grass. And the grass said, we give you permission to eat us, but just let us grow back. How many of you are vegans? as we say in Kumeyaay, move you. Why? No. And some people will say, well, I don't want to kill a living thing. I hate to break it to you, but you're eating those plants. They're living. So anyway, other animals said, I have this burning in my stomach. I want to eat flesh. So all the animals looked at each other. What are we going to do? And the deer stepped forward and said, you are my family. You are my relatives. I love all of you. So I give you permission to hunt me, to kill me, to eat me. But I ask two things. Don't let me go to waste. Use every part of me. And the other thing, allow me to have children first. So these teachings we take when we're harvesting grunion or fish or whatever, we let them lay their eggs, we let them spawn. Then we grab the ones who have already done that. And we don't take everything, just like what you're saying. There's others that need that too, the birds, other animals, other fish, because we are in balance. So just wanted to show that to you. One last thing before I shut my snoot. In November, we're going to be making a tule boat here in San Diego to hold about 50 people. It's the largest we've ever done. So, how can I say this nicely? I need some help. How many of you would be interested in learning how to make a tule boat? Don't lie to me. All right. Well, we'll be putting it together. I will put it out. If you can come, bring friends, bring your spouses, your partners. Let them sleep in the car until you get there, and then wake up, someone get to work. But yeah, so we're going to be putting this together, launching, and when we do this is part of our native knowledge that has almost gone dormant, just like what all of you are talking about. And we are revitalizing it. In the Kumeyaay way, the word for our soul is mathau. Say that, mathau. And what mathau means is a fire within our body. So when we touch each other, when we say hauka, what it means is may that fire in your body continue to glow brightly. So this is why fire to us is very sacred, because that's what we are too. We are fire also. So I wish your mathau continue to glow strong. And remember again, knowledge without sharing is not really knowledge. You understand? Then do it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Next, we're going to have Wendy touch on legislation and tribal sovereignty.
Oh my goodness, in 6 minutes. Okay. Okay. There's just so much legislation and herstory to go through. So respectfully, maybe I could just turn it into a Q&A? Comedy show? Yeah. All right.
Let me get these questions out of the way.
Okay,
real
there
quick.
we go. Hey, that's how our women act in our family.
This one will be for everyone. What actions can non-natives take today, tomorrow, and into the future to be part of this effort to reclaim sovereignty?
I'll take the first crack at that one. I think the theme with cooperation, today and speaking is also balance, right? We heard about the balance of what Kut fire brings to us. And so it's balance in not only the physical, like Stanley, it made me chuckle because vegans think they're not killing anything, but yeah, plants are alive and they're part of our relatives that sustain us. And so there's a different belief system there for those folks. But it's that balance, and it's not only in the physical, but it's also in the mental, emotional, and spiritual level as well. So like if you think of what Kut fire teaches us, it teaches us how to embrace change and that new life is coming. And if you've ever been in I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but if you've ever been in a bad relationship, a hard time, and that time period of leaving a relationship and going into a new one, whether it's with yourself, with your family, forgiveness, all through those cycles of grief, and mourning for that relationship, but then also when a new relationship comes along that really makes your heart sing, that's the regrowth of you. You're never going to be the same person you were in that past relationship. You're a new person now. So every experience that you have helps you to grow or helps you to move forward, right? And so, like, living life in balance and being able to take those lessons and being able to internalize them and then really make them work for you is the blessing. It's one of the gifts that Tamayawat Chamnatwayot give us on the daily. And so for like our spirit, it's Patoto. That's our inner fire as well. That's what guides us. It's our intuitiveness. It's our life compass. And in order for our compass to be balanced, we need to revisit our teachings and not only our teachings with the elements that are around us, but with each other as well. So we're part of the balance as well. And so I apologize, Amanda, your question again, because I just like totally went off on a different direction. Oh, yeah. So, Stanley asked for help building that Tule boat in Mission Bay in November that's going to hold 50 people. So just show up. Show up and show up with an open heart. Show up with an open ear. Show up with open eyes. Because what you think you know about us, you don't know. And what you do know about us, you really don't know. And so you won't know unless you show up in a good way, as a good relative, and just be a part of what we're doing and ask questions and everything. And sovereignty is really important. Our grandmother always told us that we're the canary in the cave for this country. Because once there is no longer any indigenous people here on Turtle Island, with the freedom to, practice their customs and traditions and speak their language, then this country is really in a bad position. And we should all be very, very, very afraid. And so if you think of, so the easiest way to think of tribal sovereignty is when you get up in the morning, how many of you have someone that picks your clothes out for you on the daily? How many of you has someone that tells you how to wear your hair? Or which makeup to put on? Or what foods you're going to eat? Does anybody dictate that for you? No, because you have individual sovereignty. Your body is your sovereign area. Your body belongs to you and nobody else. And that's how we feel about our land and our responsibilities to take care of our land and our elements and our families and each other. And we practice that because we're a nation within a nation. So if you read the U.S. Constitution, there's only 3 sovereigns in there that are mentioned. There's federal, state, and tribal. You don't hear about counties, you don't hear about nonprofits, you don't hear about things like that. But there's only 3 sovereigns. So tribal nations are really a nation within a nation. And that's why we have this constant struggle with these laws and federalism. And so anyway, so you want to protect your sovereignty, protect ours, eh? Because we'll be the first ones to go before yours gets impinged on. I know the reproductive controversy, is one that is important and should be, noted and everything. But tribal sovereignty definitely really impinges on the health of this nation here that, we currently live together in. So, anybody else want to?
I'm going to direct this question to Myra. And the theme of cooperation, do you think it's important to find ways to be in a better cooperation with each other? Do you see a path forward for natives and non-natives to work in harmony? How can we lessen the distance between native and non-native communities? There's a lot of questions.
You know, today with our theme of cooperation for the conference, it's about everyone having an acknowledgement for our creation histories, for our tribal histories, for our way of life, our religion, our songs, and I say acknowledgement, but also taking the time to understand and taking the time to get to know us as well. And those relationships, that's going to take effort. And if you don't have time if you don't understand why that's important, I think you need to also look at yourselves. Do you know where your family comes from? Are you rooted? Because we're all rooted from somewhere, just like Dr. Stan had addressed the group this morning. And when you don't know your root, that's where I've seen a lot, that people feel lost and wandered, and the importance of their everyday existence will get stronger when you know where you come from. And that's why we are so strong. We all know where we come from. We don't have these long histories of migrations and movement, and the land was created here and we're still here. That's why it's so special. And until the non-native community really ingests that and takes the time to understand that and understands that about themselves, and then understands that about the people who they are sharing their lands with today, that's when things will get better.
I'm going to open it up to Q&A. Anyone question?
Thank you for all your words today. My name is Sonia Broad, and I work with the University of California, the statewide Agriculture and Natural Resources, which is the extension arm of the UC system. And I had the great honor of being invited yesterday to visit the Pauma tribal farms and to meet with 4 of the farm managers there. And I saw the wine grapes that are being produced there and the olive trees. And I heard about all the efforts they're taking to conserve water use through different means and various other things. And I'm wondering, from the perspective of your respective tribes, what this kind of agriculture is, of course, brought in by settlers, and these are not native plants to here. But they seem to maybe play a role. I'm curious to hear what you see as the role of that kind of more traditional or settler agriculture in the life and culture of tribes in the modern day.
I would like to say a few comments. I'm from Pauma, and I know what you're talking about with our projects that are going on. One of the things is, and this have been planning, we are an agriculture reservation that have toiled those soils after colonization had come around. So we got very good at it. And if you were to go to some of the tribes, the elders said they always remember our agriculture. You know, Pauma's always had really good agriculture. But what we're doing now, and like I said, we have been planning, but what really brought it to the forefront was COVID. Remember those times when there was nothing on those shelves, or we were at that point, what are we gonna be able to feed our community, our families, you know? And as tribes, we are a community that's just a big family, because even though we may, somewhere or another, we are related, you know, but we still have to make sure that person's taking care of that person, you know, and everything. So it's always community-based on the reservation, and then we go on to the outside. But because of that, our tribal leaders at that time really ramped up the garden aspect of it. And then we've also been in revisiting our 10-year plans and stuff because of this food shortage. I don't want to say if or when. We know it's coming, right? So what are we doing to plan for this? And in that comes the thought of climate change, right? We need to get back to our native plants. Those are the ones that were resilient. Those are what fed our people, right? And that survived on it. The garden is good for right now, but it's not going to survive the climate change or anything. So speaking for Palma, that's where we've gone. I know we've done some with our sister tribe, La Jolla, and even prior to that, La Jolla has dabbled in the garden aspect of it, but because of location, maybe not having certain access to be successful, those were things that prevented them from going further. You know, I know Pachanga, I've seen some of their, getting back to their native plants, you know, but then again, it's, you know, some of us are not on our Aboriginal lands, you know, so now we got to find out about this, you know, or just getting back and reclaiming that. There's a lot more than just saying, okay, today I'm going to reclaim this, you know, there's more to it, you know. So I hope I answered your question a little, or for Palma anyway.
Yeah, so this is me looking outside in Palma, answering your question. So it's tribes are economically developed as well for economic development, and so some of the projects that you see on our reservations don't necessarily they're not a direct reflection of who we are as a people, like the grapes and the olives. You know, those come from across the ocean, and so but they're planted for economic development because they're going to support a language program somewhere on the reservation. They're going to fix an elder's porch somewhere on the reservation. And so, but when you toured the farm, I'm sure you saw some traditional plants there as well that are native to our area. And the fact that the whole farm is organic is amazing. And it looks so beautiful, like those pictures, you know, that are growing. And so you know that Palma's doing a good job in balancing everything for the health of the plants and everything. And so, you will see industries on reservations like microgrids and that give out solar power, but, you know, they store them in lithium batteries, ouch, until that technology develops even more into like a friendlier organic battery storage area. You'll see things like that on our reservations. And so it's going back to that balance, right? So, it's kind of like nuclear power or solar power, and you have to weigh the two. And you know, as societies, we are evolving. You know, our intelligence is way beyond. We always have this discussion amongst ourselves. Had we not been colonized, we would have been at the forefront of some of the science stuff, because everything that you guys, well, not you guys, but everything that most non-native folks think that they discovered, we've already were using prior to colonization. And you guys just happened to pick it up and put it in a different format and everything. I mean, so Governor Newsom, if you look in the news today, he did a press release right before I got here stating that Indigenous traditions and value systems are key components to healing for people who experience a post-traumatic stress syndrome that are being affected by substance abuse disorders. And so that goes from pharmaceuticals all the way to street drugs. And so, you know, again, we know our systems work for us because they're at the most organic level of humanity. And so, you know, I go back again to the soapbox of, like, you know, work to protect tribal sovereignty, because if you think about it, your ancestors that came from across the ocean were able to survive because we took you in. We taught you how to clothe yourself. We taught you how to go find a material to build houses that were familiar for your ancestors. We fed you and everything. And that is at the core of our humanity, of our value systems, our traditions and everything. So, you know, in La Jolla particularly, and any village here across Turtle Island, is, you know, if you're hungry, come sit at our table because we're gonna feed you. We're gonna clothe you and everything. Not for the rest of your life, but we're gonna take care of your little crisis that you have, and then we'll send you on your way like a good relative. But yeah, so you know, going back again, that's what you'll see on different reservations is economic development happening when it doesn't look indigenous to us.
Hi, and thank you. When I looked at the names here, the 3 different tribes being represented, I saw how my mind immediately went into the effect of the mindset of competition, capitalism, all of that, and wondered, historically, have the tribes been allies? Were there, you talk about here, systems of how the tribe interacted, took care of itself. What were the relationships with other tribes and either approaches to conflict resolution or things like that? Just wondering what you can tell me from the history.
Wow. It depends. Sometimes we fought. Sometimes we got married. Sometimes we got married and fought. And the way I was told by many people, many of the old timers when I was young, like Thurman McCormick, Dickie Kalak, others, Jose Pino, is that our people would go back and forth. We have Shamuk or clan lands that our clan took care of, like the oak groves or things like that. That nobody took from them without permission. But there was others that, you know, people would just go back and forth to the ocean, to the mountains. Like an example, let's say Will up in Cahuilla shot a deer and started running. And it ran through Palma. I don't know how it got there. Then it ran up to La Jolla, and then ran through Pachanga, and then came down to San Isabel. And it's going to the land of my family. We would say, keep going. You shot him. You better finish it off. Finish what you started. So people wouldn't stop for that. There was a certain way, there was a certain protocol that we have with each other. And trade and friendly relationships are always preferred to war. War is the last resort.
Hi, what are the biggest recent legislative wins as far as sovereignty and access, and were those achieved by one individual tribe or by the cooperation of many?
So this is just my opinion, but the partial overturn of Oliphant from the 1970s that gave jurisdiction back to tribal nations over non-natives was a great legislative win. And it came from the movement of protecting our women and children, of ending violence. So it came on the back of a bill called the Violence Against Women Act of 2013. And that was a huge win in Indian country. And so from there, we've been able to grow more, getting jurisdiction over non-natives that are committing crimes, whether it's poaching, whether it's coming and raping and beating up our women on our reservations or killing. And so that is a big piece of legislation that I know that I'm proud of, and every person on this panel right here had some form of involvement in it. And because that was a push from the 70s when that jurisdiction got taken away from us. And that was actually a whole Turtle Island movement of many different tribal leaders and tribes and programs and grassroots movement building over the years that happened, and it came into fruition in 2013. And so having jurisdiction over your land for safety is really important, because you're not going to have these cultural burnings, you're not going to have these tule boat making, you're not going to be able to go collect acorns up on top of the mountain, if you're fearful of being hurt. And so, one of the rules that we have when we go gather up on the mountain is don't go up by yourself and everything, because there's just a history of, sexual violence that has happened to our people up there. And so that was one of the major legislative wins for us in Indian country. And it's just been able to snowball in protecting ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, as well, and concreting it in to have tribes to have jurisdiction over their children.
I'm going to respect your guys' time. If any of you guys have any more questions, they will still be here if you guys want to ask them. But it's about to be 11:30. It's transitioning to lunch, right? Okay. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to Wendy, my mom, Myra, Will, Stan.
Nishon Lovik, have a blessed day. Nishon Lovik.